Hi, Cancer Sun and Rising. Welcome to your August 2024 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, August begins the eclipse cycle because in September we're going to have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is a fellow water sign to you. And the eclipses can affect people earlier than the actual date. So, we extend it forward and then after the actual eclipse date as well. And there's also going to be an eclipse in October. So things can start to heat up on that front, but I'm going to get to those transits when they happen in the respective months. I just wanted to mention that. The other thing that is going to be ongoing all month is that Mars is in Gemini. A lot of you may be listening in July to this report. I'm recording it in the earlier part of July, and Mars is going to enter Gemini on the 20th of the month. So the reason that this is significant is that Mars has not been in Gemini since the end of March of 2023 when it spent 7 months in Gemini. So if you think back between August of 2022 and March of 2023, during the Mars retrograde in Gemini, there might be something that occurred that you will see kind of be in a similar vein, however, not exactly the same, because it's not going to be, Mars isn't going to be retrograding, and also it's not going to be hanging around in this house as long. But it's going to have some kind of a similar effect, because when Mars goes into your 12th house, there could be something specific that is kind of behind the scenes. So one thing that could be happening is that you could be doing some kind of project behind the scenes that you're not necessarily sharing with other people. I actually think that that's a good thing, no matter what it is that somebody's doing, is to kind of keep it to yourself until you debut it, because then you don't get people criticizing it and poking holes in it. The other thing is that because Mars can be hot and heavy, maybe you're having some kind of affair, or it doesn't have to be that somebody's cheating on somebody else, but it's very torrid and you're not necessarily sharing it with the world. That makes me think sometimes that it is a little bit forbidden in some way. But you could be feeling a little bit agitated because the 12th house is a very different type of energy than what Mars brings. Mars has a physicality to it. It rules the first house, which is the house of the body, the self, with Aries. It also rules the 8th house, and that's Scorpio's domain, and that's like a whole other can of worms. But yeah, it does have that kind of active component to it. And the 12th house is like the monk sitting in the lotus position, or the hermit contemplating his existence and being in solitude. So that Mars energy kind of clashes with it. So it's great for something like Hatha yoga. So if you have the opportunity to sign up for that type of class, that would be a good way to be spiritual and also physical at the same time. On the 4th, Venus goes into Virgo, and this for you is the 3rd house of communication. So Venus has been in your 2nd house, which is the house that Venus rules. And so that might have been good for money. It's very interesting because On the same day as Venus going into the third house, we have a new moon at 12 degrees of Leo in the second house of earned income, and that can be good for your finances. There could be some new development there, but you have had Venus there for a few weeks, so maybe there's something going on with that. And that might see money coming back to you or being generated in some way in the future. Maybe you come up with an idea for a money-making venture. On the 5th, well, one thing I want to say, Venus going into the third house can have some connotation with making money through teaching or making money through the internet, writing projects, anything like that. On the 5th, Mercury retrogrades at 4 degrees of Virgo in that third house. Mercury rules the third house in astrology, so it does deal with mental pursuits. So there may be something going on that you're rethinking. It will be going back into your second house on the 14th of the month. So if there's any kind of thing where it's like the check gets lost in the mail, or if you even have the opportunity, you might, like, let's say you're starting a new job and you're used to getting a physical paycheck, you might say, you know what, I want direct deposit because I want to make sure that nothing gets lost, or any kind of other type of check that you can get direct deposit. But yeah, just realize that Mercury is a very fast-moving planet. So even if you do see something happen that's connected to your finances and a snafu of sorts, first of all, you can stop it in its tracks in some cases because you'll, be double checking all of your documents. But even if it does happen, you know that it's not going to be that long. I just got through with this comedy of errors. It would be funny. It really wasn't that funny. That had to do with a debit card, and it wasn't even Mercury retrograde. It wasn't Mercury in its shadow period. So these things happen all the time. Losing the card, not knowing why the card got lost, the card getting delivered to another address, having to go to the bank to get another one, and then the name getting misspelled, all of these things. So believe me, these things can happen at any time. And it doesn't mean that this will happen to you during this period either. But just being careful, it's always good to be careful. I mean, that's a no-brainer. On the 19th, and by the way, that can be while Mercury is retrograding, it can be that you remember an idea that you had for making money that you might go, hey, this is the thing. By the way, there's going to be a Mars retrograde in your second house in December. So these things can be, you never know if they could be connected, where you're trying to see what works. And that's always a good thing of experimentation, not just sticking to the tried and true. But if you feel like, hey, things aren't as good as they can be, you might try something else. And this is especially relevant if you work for yourself, obviously. But even if you work for somebody else, this might be something with like a side gig, and whether it's something that you're thinking of launching, or whether it's another part-time employment that's outside of yourself. It might be something that helps you at some point that you kind of dismissed, and it comes back, an opportunity that comes back to you. On the 19th, we have a full moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So for you, this is the 8th house. Wow. Okay, well, I think that I haven't really looked at this full moon yet for the collective because I have been doing full moon reports every month. That's kind of like for the collective. And so I feel like the full moon in July is very intense for its own reasons. That I already have a video on that one. But the one in August I haven't looked at yet. But for you in particular, Cancer, it will be intense because it's happening in your 8th house. And the 8th house is the house that Scorpio rules in astrology. It's the house where Pluto has been making its way into this area, creeping into this area, literally, because it's such a slow moving planet. And this particular transit in Aquarius is going to be for 20 years. So suffice it to say, it will not form a conjunction with this full moon because it's probably, I'm not looking at the ephemeris right now, but it's probably at 0 degrees of Aquarius Pluto. So it's far from it. Actually, it might actually form a sextile, which is a friendly angle. So that's because it's almost at Pisces. No, scratch that. That's not true. I always, a lot of times when I try to get cute and think of these things on the fly, my brain doesn't work like that. And I'm like, no, that wouldn't happen. But anyway, this can be a time where an unpleasant kind of emotional revelation hits you. I don't like to put it like that, though, because that makes it sound ominous, and it really isn't. That's not really what I mean. What I mean is that the 8th house, because it's a water house, it means that it's going to be an emotional area, and full moons can be emotional anyway. In Aquarius, they tend to be more detached as far as full moons go, but you have to also look at the other things, the other planets aspecting it and whatnot. But in your particular case, that the fact that it's going to fall in the 8th house means that it's going to have a sub-influence of Scorpio. And Scorpio is the house of shadows, of shadow work. And that's like the parts of yourself that you may disown, disavow, try to shove under the rug. So it tends to be the more uncomfortable emotions: rage, envy, despair, grief, all of these things that people distract themselves from, sublimate, and yet remain kind of like in the subconscious mind, which you can call Scorpio as well. And so shadow work simply means that we start to integrate those emotions into our other parts of ourselves that are on the more conscious level, and we make peace with it. Trauma is another example of 8th house stuff. Death, transformation is part of the 8th house. So that can be something where these themes come up for you to be purged. Purging itself is part of the 8th house. Suffice it to say, it can be quite intense, but by the same token, it can be healing. And that's what we're going for here. Another thing that can happen is that this is the house of shared resources. So some way, shape, or form, shared resources could come up for review. or I wouldn't say necessarily review, maybe we would say your awareness of them. So they might come up and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was happening, a thing. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Virgo, so it goes into this very newsworthy or very communicative area of life. So this is, during the Mercury retrograde, obviously, you might be taking some kind of course that has to do with, like a certification, I would say, to make more money. And this may be connected to Mercury going back in that second house. On the 28th, Mercury goes direct at 21 degrees of Leo in the second house. So those kinds of matters should get sorted out in the next few weeks as Mercury comes out of its shadow. On the 29th, Venus goes into Libra. So Venus goes into your fourth house of home and family. Well, I would say this. The eighth house can be like wills, probate issues, and whatnot. And the third house, can be your siblings. The fourth house can be your mother. Some people say the father. I say family of origin to include either one of the parents or both of them. And so if there's money, Venus can be about money. So all of these things could be interrelated with that full moon in the eighth house as well. But I feel like this is a late degree of Aquarius, this full moon. So I feel like if this is some kind of death in the family, that this is already something that you are prepared for. And maybe this is even the aftermath of the death, where you're dealing with the finances of the person who has crossed over. This can be money for a house, maybe a down payment on a house, or escrow. This can be very good for, this is like the Queen of Pentacles vibe for me, like, enjoying finding pleasure in the domestic side of life. Hey, Cancer, this is your area, fourth house, so go for it. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated, Cancer. If you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings called my deep dive readings because they are package deals. I offer these readings separately, but the package is an hour of natal chart interpretation with an hour of transits for a special hour of transits for the upcoming 12 months, whatever those 12 months are, for a special price. If you like the tarot, I have one, that combines the chart with the tarot or the transits with the tarot, called the combo platter. And if you like all three with tarot, chart analysis, and transits, that's called the whole enchilada. I also have career readings, love readings, looking at your child's natal chart. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.